Outlet Liquor is your place to buy a case. Stock up and save when you shop the lowest prices available every day at Outlet Liquor. You never have to wait for a sale. The more you buy, the more you save. Only at Outlet Liquor.
What's your outlet?
Welcome, everybody, to I'll Hang Up and Listen, joined by producer Steve, both sporting the GoatHead, Dominic Hasek, greatest of all time, best hoodie in Buffalo, by and far. You have that from Dominic Hasek himself, who supported it just last week, sported a picture with myself and my own father. So with that being said, to get away from the unimportant stuff, to get to the important stuff, the Buffalo Sabres on a very iconic, legendary, however you want to describe it, night, just a night to remember. A chance at redemption, Steve, for how they flubbed 90s night a few years ago, which I guess if that never happened, me and you probably aren't even talking right now, to be quite honest with you. You really, if you think about it in those terms. But just an absolutely fun night. They knocked it out of the park. And I think if you're going to ask for things to be done differently, the things you're asking for are probably like big asks. But in terms of all the little things that you ask for as a fan, for them to get to do on a night like this, they did it. I think the only little thing I think I might have mentioned, unless they played at the end of the game and I missed it, was they didn't play Cotton Eye Joe. But other than that, man, they knocked it out of the park tonight.
Yeah, Cotton Eye Joe would have been nice. Maybe Rick Jeannerette's in a 200 suite level box and just gives the crowd a nice little wave or something. But aside from that, again, I didn't grow up in Buffalo. And, in that golden era, I was anywhere between the ages of 9 and 14, or 15, 16, 17. So, yeah, my family wasn't making a lot of trips to Buffalo to watch Sabres games. So I didn't get to grow. I grew up with it through a television set in standard definition, not like the way we can watch hockey now, where you can literally see everything happening. Like you're struggling to see what's going on the ice out there. But damn, if that wasn't as close as I will ever get to that era of hockey live and in person, you've used the phrase on multiple occasions, but I feel like tonight was the first time that it was truly an electric factory, start to finish.
Yeah.
From that first goal, just to start things off, just there was no dull moment. Not even for a fraction of a second. Yeah,
there really wasn't. That game from start to finish was, like I said, they scored 18 seconds into the game, almost immediately. Was it 35 seconds into the game or 18 seconds? I can't remember.
This one was another one where we scored real quick. Yeah, Jeff Skinner just takes it in. Basically from the goal line, finds a way to put it over. Just in and out.
As a goalie, and I'll put my goalie shoes on here for a second. He was a what we call a reverse vertical horizontal, RVH. It's a different type of post coverage. I don't think he really needed to be in there. And the key thing there for him to do is to seal that post with his helmet, with his head. He didn't do that, and Skinner caught him sleeping. And, it was a phenomenal shot. Again, caught Binnington sleeping, probably one of the more hated players in the NHL. I have zero love lost for Jordan Binnington. Guy's a douchebag. But and then it is the Sabres kept their foot on the pedal for the most of the game. I think there were a couple moments there in the first period where they might have had us on our heels a couple times. UPL getting his first win of the season played outstanding. And I've said this multiple times before: if that guy can stay healthy, he can be a solid NHL goaltender. But the bitch of it is the combination of being healthy, staying healthy, and being consistent. I see a lot of fans already saying, "Is he the best goalie in the organization right now? That's signed by the organization right now." Let's not jump the gun there, right? I don't want to jump the gun too quick here. For me, that's string some more games together, because we've seen goaltenders play like that against Buffalo. And that was the highlight of their career in the past with certain goaltenders. So let's not get too ahead of ourselves. I love what I saw tonight out of Upi. What was the chat?
Just going you.
Okay, yeah, I love it. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves there. You got to string some more games together before this to be for him to be considered a solution, and for you to really consider. When Comrie's healthy, because there's no way you're cutting Craig Anderson, because you're not going to ask that guy to spend another year away from his family just to cut him, or to unless you're trading him. I don't know, and that would only be at his permission, because I can't see Buffalo doing a veteran, a guy that as respected as he is like that. So it would have to be a guy like Comrie, who they signed to a 2 or 3 year deal.
It's a 2-year deal.
It's a 2-year deal. So I don't see them cutting him. So I don't know. Will the Sabres carry 3 goaltenders? I don't know. We'll see. But couple clicks for UPL tonight. Phenomenal job by him. Making this, and props to the boys in the blue line too. They made it very. I don't want to say they made it easy for him, because he made some tough saves out there, but in terms of seeing the puck, being able to track the puck, he never really had to deal with too much traffic in front of him. Guys like Power. We saw Yoki Haru, played a couple very nice plays in his own end. Things that we aren't accustomed to seeing from him so far over the past, this season and much of last season. Labushkin, I commented during the game. I still think he's hurt. He just does not seem himself. He's not playing physical, but he didn't have a bad game tonight either. And then Dahlin just did what Dahlin does. Owen Power looked great. Samuelson is really a staple in that lineup. I don't know what it is about him. I know what it is, but I don't know why it is his team can't, play this way even without him in the lineup. I mean, again, Cully said it last night, and I'll hang up and listen. He goes, it's a trickle-down effect. It gives you, having a guy like him gives you the flexibility to spread certain guys around on your blue line, and I agree with them. So, again, props to the boys. Phenomenal night on the return of the GoatHead night, back in red and black. From the overall, the game itself, game presentation, from the music playlist to just Sabretooth coming down from the rafters, those vibes, taking us back to the glory days. The video package to start the game, the stuff throughout the game, the stuff on the Jumbotron, the 90s games they did, the Thunder Sticks, that was cool. The fanny packs, even though me and you weren't able to get some, that's kind of my fault too. I apologize, Steve. Maybe next time. Just
you got 2 fanny packs out there. Hit us up.
Almost perfect.
Yeah. There was a lot. Obviously, there's a lot to write home about tonight. Not only was UPL's performance just truly spectacular, I just personally loved seeing the fan base get behind the kid, because his first season here, he had a couple starts, and it seemed like every single start he got, he would let that first shot in. So it was hard for people they were just like, oh, great, glad we called him up. Tonight, he's been putting in the work. His Rochester stats don't show it, but again, the defensemen that he has are the people that got fucking, lulled into oblivion when they got called up here
Mm-hmm.
when Samuelson, Labushkin, and Yoki Hardy were out. So his stats suffered that much more because those were supposed to be Rochester's better defensemen.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were gone. And yeah, it was just amateur tryout and professional tryout, just call-ups from Cincinnati. It was just a train wreck. So again, for him to be even close to a .900 save percentage in Rochester this year is nothing short of a miracle. He's putting in the work. He's playing, again, for aside from like a couple, one or two big blowout games, like he's playing pretty consistent hockey down there. So it was really nice to see, not only him like get that NHL look and, really do something with it tonight, but yeah, just to see the fan base just kind of like embrace him as just embrace him and, get that U chant going. It just felt good. And let's talk about Jack fucking Quinn for a second.
Yeah.
Good Lord, that kid found it in the third period.
Well, you saw him throughout the game. He was getting a lot of chances. And after he finally got that first goal where he kind of flubbed the first attempt, I think he was trying to get the pass across at first because I believe it was a 2-on-1. It was an on-man rush for sure.
Yeah,
I think it was
another on. Yeah, it was another.
And then he had the time and space to take a quick look, and he ripped one right by Bennington, who had a really rough night, by the way. You love to see it. But just you saw the kind of the sigh of relief on his face when he turned to the boards, and it was like, yes, finally, thank God. And then that move he pulled on Bennington, man, like holy moly, what a goal! It was insane. Check the stands for Bennington's jockstrap after that one. And me and you kept on noticing down in the corner. There were two fans down in the corner, one wearing a Barnaby jersey and the other one wearing the old red alternate jersey. It was Shatan, but it was a number 18 Shatan from that half a season where he switched his number back to a number he had, I believe, when he was with Edmonton before Buffalo. I think he wore 18. Switched to 18 after Michael Grosek was traded away, and then realized those vibes weren't working all too well for him. So he moved back to 81, which was a good move on his part. Every time Benner would go to the boards, sometimes, most goalies do this either in between whistles, they'll skate out of their, get their feet moving, keep the blood flowing a little bit. He would go to that corner and they would let him have it every time. And I loved it.
Banging on the glass, just making them.
Oh yeah, it was great.
Shit. Yeah, I mean, on that second Quinn goal, like, as he
turns around as he's getting deked out of his shorts, the stick just flies, and he's like, "Oh, what the fuck!" And the stick just goes flying.
And we have Austin in here, contributor to 2 goals on Mike, intern Austin.
Right
We're gonna bring him into the stream. Austin, buddy, thanks for hopping on. Me and Steve were at the game tonight. Had an absolute phenomenal time. Before we get your opinion on that, we have a lot of comments here in the Peanut Gallery. Greg Malcolm, friend of the program. What a great game, boys. Dylan Baker, great game. Yeah. Oh, so that's what they were chanting. Luke, I love it. Chris Dirk, friend of the program. What a great night. 90s night was a success on and off the ice. Make up for the 50th anniversary 90s night. UPL was solid. Intro was phenomenal. And just a flat-out great night for all us boys. I couldn't agree with you more. My favorite handle on here tonight was just perfect everything. The Dominator 39. You love to see it. Mauricio, you're here every night with us when we go live for I'll Hang Up and Listen. Appreciate you, bud. Finally, Quinn finished after numerous scoring chances. You were right, Duane. You foresaw the opportunistic scoring. Quinn, Paterka, and Cousins have talent, just need more seasoning, confidence, finishing. Yep, I agree with you, Mauricio. Dylan Baker, UPL is phenomenal. The Dominator, once again, if UPL plays like that for a few games in a row, zero chance he goes back to Rochester. I tend to agree. I could definitely see his team carrying 3 goaltenders. I don't think you put yourself in a spot where you have to cut any of the 3. Or either, Andy's not going anywhere. There's no way. He's here for the whole season.
There's two.
What's his real name? He is former NHL player. Love the hot takes, swear jar insights. He is not a former NHL player. He did play up in the OHL. I believe he signed with the minor league affiliate before his career in Brooklyn because of a knee injury. But one of the more insightful guys to talk to about hockey. Cully's phenomenal, especially when he's on his A game. Nobody can really articulate the game of hockey as good as he does, at least in my opinion. Nobody I've met before. Dylan Baker, he needed to make the saves that he needed to make. That's all we can ask from him. I 100% agree. Greg Malcolm Samuelson was giving Noel Akari the business tonight. Yep, that was phenomenal to watch. Again, you love to see it. The only shot UPL should have had was the goal that was taken away on the offsides. Agree with you there. You hate the offsides review until it works in your favor, right? Dylan Baker, I've always been behind UPL. Love to hear it. Quinn is a sniper for sure. And then finally, Greg Malcolm. I was hoping for angry Bennington, as were we all. I was hoping, and I tweeted out, it would be great to see Skinner blow him a kiss after that goal, just to really get him riled up. Because he acts big and tough and whatnot. He thinks he's Tommy Tough Nuts out there sometimes. So if Skinner could have got him going, that'd have been great.
He's 10 fly.
So Austin, assuming that you watched the game, your impression from watching it on TV, what you thought about the presentation of the GoatHead jerseys, and just the overall play of the last 48 hours from these Buffalo Sabres.
The organization is finally getting it. The presentation was phenomenal. Sabretooth coming from the Raptors was an absolute classic. The whole video they had with the music selection was phenomenal. Just from start to finish, they did it right. The GoatHeads looked clean, and the players, they played like they needed to show something out, and they did. Skinner scoring in the first 40 seconds of the game, like
phenomenal.
Can't ask for a better start. Skinner now has 7 points in 2 games. Oh man, just incredible from start to finish. Loved the response that they got from the Blues getting the tying goal in the second period and just going and getting 3 more. But yeah, I love seeing Bennington getting put in the bin. It's fantastic. I can't stand him. He's one of my least favorite players in the NHL. So anytime you can put 6 past Bennington, it brings a big smile to my face. Jack Quinn finally getting some goals. And it just opened up the floodgates for him, broke the ice for him. He's gonna start scoring a lot more, scoring in bunches now. Just an overall great team performance. The blue line was fantastic. The forwards all played well. And I gotta say, Tyson Yost, the last 2 games, has played actually fairly solid for the team. And maybe this is exactly what the former 10th overall pick needed in his career. In his first shift as a Sabre, he gets in a scrap in Montreal, and he's actually looked pretty solid. So, I like the pickup that Kevin Adams made, claiming him off the waivers, and he's already made an impact on the team. So, can't complain about that.
No, you can't. And I mentioned it to Steve while we were sitting there watching the game. Like, he hasn't really, he doesn't stick out to you in a good way, but he doesn't hurt. You don't know. He was almost kind of like the way I used to talk about Jochen Hecht. Like, once in a while he pots a goal there, but he never hurts you. He wasn't hurting us out there. And he plays his game. He plays an honest game. He plays well in his own end, and he's out there on the penalty kill every time we take a penalty. So as long as he's doing his job out there, he will, I think Donnie will likes players like him, guys who play good on all 3 zones of the ice, and isn't going to hurt you defensively. And I think Donnie is going to appreciate that. I think it's going to be tough to see him come out of this lineup as he plays like that every night, because you don't always need to go out there and score, provide scoring chances or, score goals. Preventing goals from happening is also a big deal too. And having players in your team that you can throw out there against the other team's top line players, that's important too. And this is the last 2 games are the first 2 times we've really seen this team really able to handle the opposing team's top lines. I think who scored for them last night, Steve? Who scored?
Who scored for Montreal?
Cole
Caulfield definitely got one of them. I'm trying.
Yeah, he's a top line player, but I mean, but for the most part, you lock that top line down, and then you did that tonight too. So that's 2 games out there.
Monahan was the other goal.
I'd be interested to see. I'd be interested to see what lines he matched up with when he was out there, 5-on-5.
Yeah,
I really would.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear that he's gonna get some bottom 6 minutes, but honestly, the pairing of Gergensons and Okposo is, and I know that you have your feelings about the guy, but it's kind of been in an identity crisis ever since Larson left the organization. I think they just kind of needed that like stable center that they know what they're gonna get out of him, and what they get out of him is something consistent, something something decent. And obviously, Eakin's one claim to fame last year was the neck turn and winning faceoffs. He literally couldn't do anything else. So you can't really build much of a fourth line identity around that. But I feel like Tyson Jost might be bringing what Gergensons, when Okposo comes back, what he'll need to have some sort of fourth line grinding identity. And I think the log line might become the jog line. So
Yeah, I agree. Somebody actually
have their fucking step.
that in the peanut gallery here real quick from Colin Donnie. Saw an Andre Trefilov jersey night, best GoatHead jersey sighting of the night. There were some good ones out there, man. There were definitely some good ones. Bennington acts like he's Hasek or Wah. He acts like he walks on fucking water. I'm so glad they lit him up. You and me both, man. I'm excited to see Jost with Okposo and Gergensons, the jog line. That would be very interesting. I think that is a line, especially with the young legs of Jost, a guy who can keep up. Maybe make up for the lack of speed from Okposo.
Yeah,
a guy who, you can maybe throw out there against teams' top lines and expect them to lock them down, because you see the type of game Gergensen brings night in, night out. It is important. I appreciate it as well. I think he does have a lot of value on this team, especially for what you're paying him. So, I'd be interested to see how that line works out too when Kyle's back and healthy.
I think that the problem is that once Asplund comes back, it's going to leave, Middlestat and Krebs as the odd men out, because. I mean, that's fine with Middlestat because, he doesn't provide anything really 5v5 besides a very good forecheck. But for Krebs, I mean, a young player who just needs to find the back of the net a couple times to really get that confidence back. Unfortunately, when guys like Okposo and Aspen come back, they're going to take his spot because he's not really producing much, Or are they going to scratch Tyson Jost because he's the new guy on the block? But he's a vet who, brings something special to that fourth line with Gergensons and Okposo. It's a tough question they're going to have to answer.
Yep. Rasmus Asplund, he does have value too, but me and Steve were talking earlier, man, like a guy like Tyson Jost could make a guy like Rasmus Asplund expendable. He could.
I mean, right now it's a small sample size, so let's not put the cart before the horse. But
no.
We'll ultimately see how those two shake out year in, year out. I mean, if those are the two dudes that cycle in and out, I feel like they do enough of the same things that you want them to do. That if those are the guys that are switching in and out of healthy scratching, I think ultimately, if the end game of this team is to develop and grow the young guys. And that's like priority number one. Like this season is not about making the playoffs. This season is
it's not
a contender. This season's about ideally being a 500 team and giving the young kids, the whole backyard. It's like you do what you got to do. Let your legs stretch, roam free, figure it out. Win, lose, suffer, bleed. I don't give a shit. You're out there. Figure it out. So. Sending a kid like Krebs back down to Rochester or just sitting him night in and night out in the press box is just doing the kid a disservice. So, I mean, ultimately, I mean, we've all been pretty critical of, Casey, but, I just don't think they're ever going to bench the guy. I just don't think that's not his style. But ultimately, like, Krebs has to stay in the lineup. Like, he's not, like, respectfully, he's not going to get that much out of going back down to Rochester. Like, yeah, he might give like a little like
might get like a little jolt of lightning through the arms of guys like Kulik and Rosine, but like that's not doing anything for him. Like he needs to learn how to like make that playmaking skill translate to the big game. Like that's what he's supposed to be. He's supposed to be that fucking disgusting playmaker. So I mean, if he's going to get healthy scratched every day, like I hope he's getting a garbage plate or something, because at least he can put on 10, 15 pounds. That's a good start.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, if it were me, if I could be the GM for a second, I would never sit that kid. Regardless of whether he's struggling or whether he's succeeding, the kid needs to be fucking playing NHL minutes. And
Did we get an update on Bryson? He didn't play the entire third period. I know they mentioned something on the broadcast that he wasn't seen out. Did they give an update in the post game on if what he was dealing with?
I haven't seen anything. This is actually the first I've heard that he didn't play a single shift in the third period. I wasn't aware of that. Let's look that up right now.
Yeah, take a gander here.
Let's see. Jacob Bryson. Well, you just can't type Bryson into Twitter, because then a lot of other stuff shows up, and it's not always what you're looking for. But Jacob Bryson.
Yeah, I'll keep ticking for it, Duane. You can keep chatting. See if we can figure something out here.
I'm not seeing anything here recently on Jacob Bryson.
Yeah, I'm guessing that might be something that they might want to take a closer look at. I mean, tomorrow's Thanksgiving, so I'm not sure how much of a closer look they're going to take at it. But probably tomorrow, he's probably just going to like rest and recuperate like everybody on the team, have dinner with their families. So probably like first thing Friday morning, if he needs to be evaluated, like somebody from the medical staff is going to take a look at him. I mean, I didn't see anything that was like eye raising that like, ooh, he's going to be out for a minute. Like he's clearly feeling. Like honestly, there was that one shift where like Skinner took a big hit. He was kind of like, little dog.
Yeah, because Tage Thompson came back on a 2-on-1 and he passed it off to Skinner, and Skinner.
Yeah, Skinner was just like he was just like not really like engaged in the play, and it wasn't. We weren't quite sure if he was totally gassed or if he was like genuinely hurt. But yeah, I mean, I didn't see anything that happened to Bryson that really makes me think like he's going to be like out for a long time. It might be just like a day-to-day dinger, and if it is, maybe pull in Pilot in place of him. I mean, honestly, I'd rather have Pilot than Fitzgerald, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, my guess is we probably, just given that tomorrow's Thanksgiving, I don't think we're going to get any meaningful update on that until Friday morning when somebody's back at work and taking it.
Yeah, I was proud of UPL tonight. I mean, your first game up in the majors, you get kind of shellacked by the Maple Leafs. You shake that off.
I mean, that wasn't his fault though.
No, it's not. But
playing garbage in front of him.
Still though, your first game up again.
Yeah,
it seems like consistently every time he's came up from Rochester, he has a shitty blue line in front of him, and he's getting shellacked out there. Happened last year. Happened the year before that when we were in the COVID year. So for him to shake all of that off and have a phenomenal game tonight, can't be happier for the guy. Yeah,
and you got back-to-back great games for both goaltenders, Anderson and UPL. And just back-to-back games where you were finally looking at a blue line that was doing all the little things right. They weren't puck watching. They were controlling their gaps. They weren't allowing players in front to take liberties, whacking away at extra loose pucks, playing physical, picking up the stick instead of just watching the puck as it's coming towards the net. Using their sticks as windshield wipers instead of playing angles correctly. They did everything right the last two nights. And the forwards, again, you played a very aggressive style of hockey. You weren't allowing the Blues to have a lot of time and space with the puck. I mentioned it really early on. Like, look how quickly it takes a Buffalo skater to get within a foot of the puck carrier for St. Louis. They're almost on them like flies on shit immediately. You weren't seeing that in the 8-game losing streak. They weren't playing that aggressive. They were playing like dog shit in their own end. It's a completely night and day different team from what we saw a week ago till what we've seen the last two nights.
Yeah. I'm honestly not sure how much UPL studies the tape, but I kind of noticed something like multiple attempts that the Blues made when they were able to get something set up. Is they got kind of like this like little, it's kind of like a right triangle sort of thing that they got going in. They got one guy at the top center, takes it down to one of the corners, and then they feed it to the guy dead center, or they feed it back to the guy way up. And every single time, like UPL knew that it was coming to that guy, and he was right where he needed to be. It happened like 4 or 5 times, and it was always like a nice tic-tac-toe shot. And like it beats a lot of teams. That's why this team succeeds, because they keep playing that play and it works. But UPL, like he just knew it was coming every single time. So I'm not sure if that's just like a virtue of studying the tape with somebody, or I'm not sure. But like, yeah, he was just like, every single time they set up that play, and I've seen it work for him so many times, and so many highlights. But no, he was just like, nope, you're not fooling me with that shit. But yeah, the only times they beat him were like, taking them deep, wide open bar, and it's like, somebody just maybe not on their guy on that corner, and for a guy who had double hip surgery, you can only stretch so far. So you can't save them all.
We can talk too about Tage Thompson. Even though I don't think this is the first time he hasn't gotten on the score sheet in quite some time. Still a phenomenal effort from him. I tweeted it last night. I said, that guy has a highlight reel move almost every single game. Like he reminds me. When I tweeted out earlier too, I said it's like watching Tim Conley again with him. Those are the vibes you get from watching him stick handle. But another vibe that I get from him that we got early on in this particular player's career, before pre-Briere Drury trade, or not trade, after they walked in free agency, is a Fenagenoff. And when I say that, every time he gets the puck, you kind of get off your seat just a little bit, because it's like, something special is about to happen. I get those vibes from Tage Thompson, and it's so cool. You would get those with Jack Eichel too, because Jack Eichel's a special hockey player and he's going to do something special out there. But it's awesome to see a guy the size of Tage Thompson, like the comeback story of that kid over the last couple of years. You get off your seat a little bit every time he touches the puck, because it's like, that one movie when Stella got her groove back. Tage got his groove back, and every time he's entering the zone with the puck, you almost know something nice and unique or fun is about to happen.
Yeah, kind of felt the same way when I saw Dylan Cousins finally get his first goal in a minute tonight.
Dylan Cousins had a great game tonight.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, he's just commanding that line at center with Patrick and Quinn. He's just doing a phenomenal job. And again, he's not like he's a veteran comparatively for this team, because he's been here for more than 2 years, but like he's still a very young man, and he's like taking his leadership role very well. But like, yeah, I mean, this is a kid who's been like trying so hard to get on the score sheet, getting the lamp lit, and just keeps getting snaked. He's also like had like 2 or 3 goals in the past couple of weeks, go off skates, go off sticks. He's just snake bitten out there, and like the same way that like Jack Quinn was just desperate to get a fucking goal. Like you could see it for Dylan Cousins, but my God, that 3-on-1 was a thing of beauty. Like that felt like a play straight out of 1999. Like you don't see a 3-on-1 happen so beautifully anymore. Like because teams are too defensively good at this point. Like they don't let 3-on-1s happen anymore. So like just to see that play out the way it did, like and thankfully Buffalo didn't make one too many passes, which we've also seen them do from time to time. It was fucking beautiful. And yeah, I mean, Dylan Cousins, JJ Paterka, those are the 2 people I want to see grow more than anybody this year. But guys,
and that line was fun to watch tonight. The Paterka and Quinn line, they were clicking. And again, I think if we discussed it last night, and I'll hang up and listen, is I'd still like to see them go out and try and find another second line center to really make that solidify that line as your third line. And there's nothing wrong with adding depth down the middle, and if you could add another guy down the middle for yourself in your top 6. And like I said, I still really believe, at least for the time being, less is more for those guys, because they still have a lot of growing to do, growing into their bodies. They're not full-grown adults yet. So I wouldn't mind seeing those guys in that third line position where they're playing 15, 16 minutes a night and, grinding on the power play second unit, power penalty kill. That can go a long way for guys like that. And just to see them really bring in a second line center, not somebody who you're gonna have to pay a ton of money. I'm trying to remember who me and Cully were talking about last night. It was a good name too. I want to say it was out of Anaheim. Let me take a look here. Who was it that we were referring to? It might have been from Anaheim.
Trevor Zegras.
Yeah, I wish, right? I really do wish Trevor Zegras. Wish
Well,
they're
they're more veteran centers are Ryan Strome and Adam Henrique.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't. Maybe it wasn't Anaheim. I'll think of it. Anyways, just a guy that you could bring in. Oh God, I remember his name now. Philip Deneau. Philip Deneau would be a great guy to come in and play for your team and a second line center. You wouldn't have to pay him a boatload of money. I think he might have like a year left on the current deal he's on. That type of player, I think, would be the perfect fit for this team, and could really fit in nicely on your second line. I really do.
Well, he does actually have 5 years at 5.5.
Oh, is it 5?
Yeah, 5 at 5.5.
A guy like him, though.
Oh yeah, I mean, when I watched him play in Montreal, he was doing great things. Like that playoff run that they had, where they went to the Cup final.
He was one of their best players when they made that run to the finals.
Yeah, he was fucking phenomenal.
Yeah, I forget where he is now, though.
He's with LA.
LA, okay.
Yeah, he's been there for this is his second season with them.
But those are the type of players you need. A guy like Philip Deneau, who he's not coming. You're not expecting him to be your first line center. And I mean, what would you trade for a guy like that? It's fun, man, because the vibes are back. You're looking at this team again in a much more positive light. They're healthy again, minus obviously the injury to Okposo. You're kind of looking at the lineup that you're going to have for most of the season. And, I mean, you give this type of effort every single night, I don't think it's going to matter who you're playing, man. You're going to win a lot more games than you lose.
I agree. It's nice to see the team fully healthy again. I think that we could be seeing a trade package involving Casey Middlestat out of town relatively soon for some draft compensation, just with, Asplund coming back healthy, Okposo being, coming back healthy, Krebs, they're so deep that someone like Middlestat is the odd man out. They could trade him out. I wouldn't be opposed to bringing someone in, but I think the chemistry is so good right now. And obviously they're winning again after, taking an 8-game slide that, it's good to keep the core guys together.
Yeah. Here from Greg Malcolm, what do you guys think it would take to get a JT Miller or Bo Horvat to trade? Personally, I want nothing to do with JT Miller. I love the player, but that is a hefty contract that just kicked into year one. And
we already have Jeff Skinner. We do not need another.
Yeah, you can't pay two guys that kind of money, especially when the best hit. I'm not saying JT's best years are behind him, but I would say that you would probably get maybe 3 to 4 good years out of that contract. And, I don't think we're in a position where we can pay that guy. We can't let ourselves get another Okposo. Bo Horvat, on the other hand, though, I'm a big Bo Horvat fan. I love his game. He's elite. He's the captain there. I'd be very interested to see, as far as I know, I think the only 2 players that are off limits right now in Vancouver are Quinn Hughes and Elias Pettersson, right?
And Demko.
And who?
They said don't call about Demko. It's a non-starter, which I think is fair.
Yeah. So it's just, pretty much everybody's up for grabs except for those guys. And I'd be very interested to see what it would take to get a Bo Horvat. 100%, because, one of the biggest things that lingered with him was the injuries. He's been able to stay healthy. He's been very good for Vancouver, who's been struggling. And he's a leader. He wears the C in Vancouver. There's nothing wrong with being another talented leader into your locker room.
Yep, and he does fit with the age of this young team. I mean, he is only 27, which is kind of the golden years for an NHL forward. It's like pretty much once they hit 30, that's when, more often than not, when you're not, Sidney Crosby or Patrice Bergeron or Patrick Kane. For the rest of the players of the world, usually once you start hitting your 30s, you start getting some diminishing returns. So, I mean, even if it's only a 4-year contract, the overwhelming majority of that contract would be a pretty useful deal for the squad. And again, respectfully, I think he would be an absolute fucking fool to re-sign with Vancouver unless they are going to back up the money truck for him, which, spoiler alert, they can't do. He would be an absolute fool to sign an extension with that squad. So it's almost a certainty, given that he's an unrestricted free agent, that he will be. I mean, if Vancouver's smart, they trade him before they get to free agency, where he can just go anywhere for nothing. But that's it. Yeah, that's all to say. His time in Vancouver there's an expiration date on it. I just don't know what it is, and I don't know where he goes. But most smart teams move them out of their respective conferences, so he's coming east. And I would love to see it be here. That would be nice.
100%. And I still think you need some help on your blue line too. I mean, I got a little bit of slack for mentioning a guy like, when you talk about Vancouver, a guy like Tyler Myers. I still think he would fit in well on your blue line. A guy with only 1 year left on his deal. If Vancouver, which they've shown they're willing to do in the past, is willing to eat half that contract, I wouldn't mind paying a guy like Tyler Myers with his experience and size, $3 million for 1.5 seasons, to come back to Buffalo and see what he could do in terms of contributing to this lineup. Because he hasn't had a terrible career. He hasn't. Has he lived up to the expectations of that first Calder Trophy season? No, he hasn't. But I still think he has some game left in the tank, and he has something to offer a young team like Buffalo, in my opinion. But those are my two asks. If we're trying to be selfish and say that we're looking ahead to playoffs, as an actual opportunity for this team, those are the two asks: a second line center and a legit top 6 defenseman. Which at the deadline, it could cost you quite a bit. But the Sabres have a lot to offer. Like we've seen in the peanut gallery, guys mentioned names like Casey Middlestat and Victor Olofsson. I think Victor Olofsson, granted, the analytics say he does nothing 5-on-5. I think personally, if you're going to trade him, you should probably do it soon while the iron's hot. But if they decide not to trade him, I don't mind it either, just because I think he is playing very well. Even 5-on-5, I mean, I watch out there and I don't get upset with him as often as I used to. And you can't just deny the contribution, how much better he makes that power play unit. With Tage on the opposite side of him, it's like a double, a two-headed dragon, so to speak, on your first power play unit. Who do you cover? It's tough. But, just to recap the box score from tonight's game, I'll pull it up here momentarily. But, again, 7-2 win for the Buffalo Sabres.
6-2. That was 7-2 was last night.
I'm sorry, 6-2. I apologize. 7-2 is last night, 6-2 is tonight. 13 goals in the past
24 hours.
I guess Buffalo was saving all their scoring for when they came back home. Pre and GoatHead night. Just a ton of fun. The Sabres get to 9, improved to 9-11. 2 games out of 500. UPL getting his first win of the season with Buffalo after a not so hot. And again, it wasn't on him against Toronto. That was a tough spot for him to put in after the Comrie injury. especially with how badly that team played in front of him. And not, a night I think he would like, and we all would like to forget about, especially because it was against Toronto. But, definitely a nice comeback, comeback game for him in his second start in three games. Goals tonight: Jack Quinn with 2, Jeff Skinner with 2, giving him 7 points in the last 2 games. Dylan Cousins with a goal, Vinny Henestros with an assist, Casey Middlestat with an assist, Victor Olofsson with a goal, and then JJ Paterka and Owen Power both with assists. 2 of the most notable guys, I guess you could say, not on the score sheet for sure, would have been Darlene and Tage Thompson, and Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen UPL with 34 saves on 36 shots. St. Louis Blues goals go to Pavel Bushnevich and Braden Shen, with assists going to Noel Akiari, Ivan Barbashev, Jordan Kyrou, and Robert Thomas. So not a great night for the St. Louis Blues top to bottom. Jordan Binnington getting shelled, only making 26 saves on 32 shots. Again, you love to see it. Love to see it. One thing I definitely want to point out about this is kind of the fall of Ryan O'Reilly this season. The guy has been very, very less than average, or at least what we expect from Ryan O'Reilly. Maybe what he expects from himself at 31 years old. It's not like he's getting old. He's still got a lot of game left in the tank, but this season in 19 games played, only 8 points, and he's in a -10, for the center. Another guy, too, that I'm not sure if you want to look up his contract, Steve. Maybe you could swing a deal to bring Ryan O'Reilly back to Buffalo. That would be interesting, wouldn't it?
It would definitely be interesting. But again, with guys like him or Tyler Meyer, I just feel like they might have enough bad memories of the way it was before that you can't convince them, no, babe, really, it'll be different this time. I just don't know how you make that sell. Maybe more so for Tyler Meyer than just given that he was here longer than Ryan O'Reilly. But that, I guess that's all to say that. Ryan O'Reilly does only have this 1 year left before he's UFA. Granted,
he's a UFA next season.
He will be a UFA this summer. So him and Tarasenko, honestly. So that's
the Tarasenko thing. Didn't he request a trade too?
Oh yeah, I think he's requested trades more than once. So obviously they made some big signings this summer. They signed Kyrou long term. They signed Robert Thomas long term. Bushnevis and Shen and Saad are locked up for a pretty long time, but a lot of the other forwards in this core are, the 2 most notable are O'Reilly and Tarasenko, but looks like Barbashev, Akiari, Tyler Pitlick, a bunch of other lesser known guys. They're all up this year, either UFA or RFA. Their blue line's pretty much locked up. The only dude who's up this year is Nico Mikola, and gun to my head, I don't really know who that is. The forward core in St. Louis could be looking radically different come next fall, and I wouldn't be surprised if it did. I definitely don't see a Tarasenko back. Ryan O'Reilly maybe, but he would kind of have to pick it up to make it seem like it's worthwhile to St. Louis to keep him around. But he could definitely be one of those dudes moved at the deadline with salary retained. I feel like Tarasenko, you're going to want to move the tires on that a lot quicker just because he's been so vocal about wanting out for quite a long time. And I guess from a statistics standpoint, he's doing a little bit better with.
It's fun. It's fun to have these conversations. You know what I mean? When it comes to Ryan O'Reilly, I would say you got like a 3% chance of that actually happening because he's going to be UFA. I don't see Buffalo wanting to give up assets for a 31-year-old unless that playoff push is legitimate and they have a real sniff at it. But again, next season, if you want to bring in a guy like Philip Deneau or Ryan O'Reilly to fill in at that second line, and again, just because you're a third line center doesn't take away from your importance to this hockey team or your contribution to this hockey team. We talk about 90s night, that 05-06 Sabres team, they were so stacked. Derek Roy was your third line center. Like, there was a reason why that team in particular should have won the cup that year if it wasn't for injury in the playoffs to defend to our blue line. That team would have taken home the Stanley Cup. They would have steamrolled the Edmonton Oilers. You had Ryan Miller entering his prime. Danny Briere, Chris Drury, Tim Connolly, Afenaganov, Roy Vanek. They're all playing on a different level than the rest of the league, and those were the games. Those 2 years where they were never out of a game. Even if they were down by 3 with 5 minutes left, you knew they were going to find a way to come back and win. And that's what you hope to get out of a Don Granato coached hockey team at full health. When this vision that Kevin Adams has for this team, players that want to be here, work hard, blue collar hockey, that vision with all those great buzzwords that we hear that, get us excited to be Sabres fans again. Once that vision is fulfilled and, the roster and how it shakes out, these players that you've drafted, the Matthew Savoys, the Yuri Kuliks, the Devin Levis, the Eric Portillos, when these guys are ready to make that jump, how they'll fill into this locker room and on the ice, that's yet to be seen. But I'm super excited to see the direction of this hockey team and to see them continue to play like this, to see them when you do have a full building like you did tonight and the vibes are what they are and they're as loud, the fans are as loud as they are, to continuously show up and show up the way they have. And they have showed up in those moments. Granted, the Jack Eichel return game tonight, this year, not tonight, but this season, that's, one of the exceptions. But in terms of playing in front of a full building with the fans like energized and on their feet, they've shown out. They've shown up almost every time, dating back to last season, the Jack Eichel game last year.
Yeah, it's definitely, I'm happy to see that the 8-game losing streak did not get double digits. That makes me happy because then I would actually start getting a little bit of PTSD based on what happened last year, or not last year, but 2 years prior, because that was no.
Like I said, Greg, I 100% agree. I know Steve would agree too about Jack Quinn filling in that spot for sure. But all I'm saying is, like, do I need Victor Olofsson as time? No, I don't. But if they don't just trade him immediately, like, I'm not going to be overly upset about it. Like, I'm just not. Like, I think he has a lot to contribute to this hockey team. And if he's going to be on the ice, I'm fine with it. I also don't want to lose him for nothing. He's an RFA. I think he'll be RFA again. He only signed a 2-year deal. He would be a free agent again next season. I'm not sure. Steve,
he will actually be a UFA.
He'll be a UFA next year. Okay, so you don't want to lose a guy like him for nothing. So he would be a guy that would be on the block, or you got to keep an eye on if Kevin Adams is interested in keeping him around beyond this.
Got him for 2 more years, but after that, UFA. So
who's got 2 years?
Victor. He's got this year and next year.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's what I thought. I didn't think he would.
Yeah, 24-25 is when he.
Okay, yeah. So he's got 1 more year left of the deal.
Incidentally, also when Casey Middlestat becomes an RFA. So.
Yep.
So those two 2 more years, and then you have to ask yourself some serious questions. Mm-hmm. And hopefully they come up with the right answers.
Cousins reminds me, I love this comment. Cousins reminds me of Pekka. I can just imagine how good Buffalo would have been in 1999 if Pekka was the number 3. 100% agree. And that's what I envision about Michael Pekka. Or not Michael Pekka, but Dylan Cousins. Is I look at him and I see so much of Pekka in his game. And that's why I'd be a huge advocate for them to bring Pekka up to be an assistant coach on this bench, just to get him talking and working with a guy like Dylan Cousins and JJ Paterka as often as possible, because you see a ton of his game in both those players, more so Dylan Cousins. Going back, I love the insight here from Greg Malcolm. Samuelson reminds me of Jay McKee, solid stay-at-home guy that holds the D corps down which sucked losing him in 05-06 against Carolina, but I firmly believe Conley was the biggest loss here. I tend to agree. Conley's injury was really, I think, what hampered that team most because he was an absolute game changer. And, like, I don't joke when I talk about Tage Thompson. Like, I see a lot of the elite skill in Tage that we used to see at Timmy before all the injuries. The biggest difference is Tage is a lot bigger. He's not going to easily push or bully it around as maybe Timmy was. So I think the end of that story is going to be a lot different for Tage than it was for Tim. But I see so much of the elite talent in Tage as I used to see in Tim. Just the ability to stick handle in a phone booth, weave his way through traffic, get creative with his hands and his stick handling. Just so much of his game in Tage. But final thoughts, boys. Heading into Thanksgiving, a couple things here. What are we thankful for? And what do we hope to see in this next half of the season? We're not quite at the halfway point yet, but what are we looking for from this team, post Thanksgiving heading into the new year?
Awesome.
I'm thankful for good beer. I'm thankful for the Sabres getting a win before Thanksgiving so I can have a happy Thanksgiving. Happy that Tage Thompson is a Buffalo Sabre, and just happy for friends and family and the time that we get to spend with one another because no day is promised. And I'm hoping that we come out of Thanksgiving and, take a couple days rest and just keep going on this win streak, keep getting some production out of the third and fourth lines. And, hopefully we get to see Darlene win a Norris Trophy this year.
I love that last part because I think if he continues at this pace, not only we could be talking about Rasmus Dahlin as a Norris Trophy front runner, but I think he's in the conversation for the Hart Trophy as well. On pace for over 100 points. Same thing with Tage Thompson's on pace for over 50 goals, over 100 points. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, what about that guy at Edmonton, number 97? Well, the point of the Hart Trophy is most valuable to their team. And I think that if both these guys continue to play like this, and somehow, some way, again, I'm not saying it's going to happen. We can all always be cautiously optimistic. Find a way to break the playoff drought this season. I'd be hard-pressed to not at least have one or both of those guys nominated.
Well,
Maybe I'm getting too ahead of myself. Maybe I'm being a biased Sabres fan. But I love hearing players like them in those talks, in those circles of, league's best defenseman at the Norris or Hart Trophy. It's nice to hear those talks happen. And even with Tage not getting a point tonight, he was still active all over the ice, noticeably good, creating plays, creating havoc. That's the player you're going to get every night. I'm hard pressed to find a better player in the NHL right now.
Yeah, I mean, you keep saying that, and then all the people keep going, well, if I guess Connor McDavid doesn't exist. It's like, yeah, we know Connor McDavid exists. But right now, the guy who's glowing up harder than anybody is still clearly Tage. Like, no one saw this coming from Tage. Like, we all hoped it would happen.
Nobody
but no
did.
one saw it coming.
Nobody.
And he's just taking what he built last year and just somehow amplifying it even more. Which again, like now the tweets are coming out like, damn, Kevin Adams saved himself like $3 million a year signing this deal early, huh? It's like, yeah, that's what we tried saying last summer when the deal got signed, that this is actually a good thing. Because, yeah, if he just does even better this year, then, yeah, he'd be looking at 8.59, maybe even 10 to sign him long term. And, yeah, now he's 7.1. Robert Thomas is signed to 8. Kyron's signed to 8. Norris is signed to 8. I'm not hearing about them as much. I'm not seeing them on the NHL highlights as much as I'm seeing Tage Thompson. That's all I'm going to say. And the NHL doesn't have to talk about Tage. They can talk about any good player on 32 teams. But they keep talking about Tage. There must be a reason for it.
Mhm.
So I guess what I'm thankful for, hockey in general, the fact that I don't live in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania anymore, because I wouldn't get to go to these games in person. And I probably wouldn't be doing this because I'd still be fucking around in Philly instead of, just getting to talk Sabres all day, every day because I'm, not living.
Yeah.
I'm living in Philly instead of the greatest city on planet Earth. Thankful for my band. We fucking rock. Our record's finally fucking done being recorded. So that's going to be out at some point in the new year. It's going to be sweet. And I'm thankful for the box of vegan food from Strong Hearts that I'm going to fucking devour tomorrow. So thankful for vegan places that make a giant Thanksgiving meal kit for lazy motherfuckers like me who don't want to cook, because I don't want to cook. So thank you for cooking for me, and I will just preheat my oven and stick these things in there for 20 minutes and call it a feast. Let's go.
Right. I personally am thankful for the friends I've made through this show, including you guys, my family, my girlfriend, just on a personal level, they're going through a tough time right now. So, a couple clicks for them and hopefully they get through this. And, yep. And, but thankful for, like you said, Steve, hockey and this team, and the steps they've made to move forward. And we hope that they continue to make. They've made hockey fun again in Buffalo. So they made that crest, whether it's the GoatHead or the Royal Blue and Gold. Excuse me. I couldn't hold it in. I apologize. But they've made being a Sabres fan something to be proud of again. How often, over the last 5 years do we see, a lot less often seeing people even on, in the off season or a non-game night wearing their Sabres gitch, wearing it with pride, where, 10 years ago, you couldn't turn a corner without seeing somebody wearing a slug hat or a goat head hat or whatever it was. So I'm thankful for this teams for making this Sabres family fun again. I'm thankful for looking forward during the day to watching games again. I'm thankful for not turning games off early anymore, even when they're losing. And I'm thankful for the podcast, for how, I guess, as I mentioned before, I'm thankful. I'm not thankful that they were miserable to watch 2 years ago, but I'm thankful that we went through the things that we went through because we're stronger here at the end of the line. Again, had that all not happened, Steve, we and you probably aren't talking right now. The show doesn't exist. I mean, it did exist before all that, but it was only for a handful of episodes, and then it died, and it was revitalized through what happened with the rant. And so I'm thankful for those struggles, and because of those struggles, where we are right now as a team and as a Sabres family, as a podcast family. So I'm thankful for all of that. So with that being said, any final thoughts, boys, before we sign off here?
Really looking forward to Friday. My brother's come to town because he's a big Devils fan. And the Devils had 3 goals called back tonight and lost to the Maple Leafs 2-1.
I saw that, man.
And their streak ended.
My
prediction is that Friday is going to be, regardless of who's in net for either team, it's going to be a fucking it's just guns ablaze and high scoring affair.
Mm-hmm.
Bet the over if you're a betting man. That's all I'm going to say, because it's going to be fucking.
Leafs win 2-1 with 3 goals overturned.
To be fair, I do think that one. I do think the one was a distinct kicking motion, but the 2 that were goaltender interference.
Yeah, I saw that one. It's a tough call, but I mean, I don't think I've ever seen that in my lifetime. Three disallowed goals in one game. That's nuts.
They started throwing trash on the ice. They were so fucking upset. I
They set a franchise record.
Yeah.
They set a franchise record for wins in a season, and I don't condone throwing shit on the ice, but I can understand the sentiment and the frustration and something that you're proud of that's happening and it's being taken away from you, maybe unjustifiably. I get the anger. So
it should have been a 3-2 games. Devils should have 13 dubs right now, or 14 or 20 or whatever many is at this point. So yeah, bet the over Friday. That's my betting pick. Don't take.
Yeah, it's our betting advice. Bet the over.
That's my gambling advice. That's about all I got for you. Bet the fucking over. Don't be a chump.
But, unrelated USA men's soccer team in the World Cup on Friday. Make sure you support the boys because World Cup only happens every 4 years. So make sure
they look like they have themselves a team this year.
Well, the problem is that they needed to beat Wales. I've played soccer my whole life, so they needed to beat Wales because they're going up against England, who is one of the best teams in the world. And if you lose to England, beating Wales doesn't, that means a lot less by losing to England. But now that they drew Wales, they need to get a result against England, at least a draw, if not a win. That's going to be very difficult. Then they need to go beat the shit out of Iran by like 8 goals.
So,
we'll
all be tuning in on Friday. When's the Ryan Miller jersey retirement ceremony?
January 16th.
Oh yeah, it's still a little ways away.
Yeah, it's the game in January against the Islanders, but amazingly, that's not one of the
GoatHead.
That is not one of the GoatHead nights, which seems kind of ass backwards to me.
I mean, maybe they can still change. There's no reason they still can't change that. But for me, also, it's kind of weird that they would do it against the Islanders. Why not against the Ducks? Or I don't know.
I'm not quite sure.
Like, even with how bad Hashik's jersey retirement was, it was very poorly done. They still at least did it against Detroit, a team that he won 2 cups with, that he had roots with after he left Buffalo. So, head scratcher for me for sure that they would do it against the Islanders. But what do I know? I think that's
Miller only played in the GoatHead for 1 season, so I can understand why it's not a GoatHead night. He played in the Slughead for most of his career. So,
yeah, I mean, he had a cup of coffee with Buffalo in 04, 05 too. Didn't start his first full season, I think, until 05, 06. But yeah, I'm a little confused as to why at least that game was the schedule on a night where Anaheim was in town. But that's just my opinion. Maybe again, it also might be due to Ryan's own schedule. They probably have to confer with him when works for you. Sure. Maybe they tried to make it work with Anaheim. It just didn't work with him. Maybe he has something going on. So, with that being said, guys, as always, thanks for hopping on with me. It is fun to talk about Sabres wins, dominating wins, and it's always fun when the Sabres are good. And they've been phenomenal the last 48 hours. So, 12 goals scored in the last 2 games. Jeff Skinner with 7 points in 2 games. Tage Thompson, 4 points. Alex Tuck with another. I think Tuck had two assists tonight.
Yeah, he is.
Again, just that whole the players you need to perform that you expect perform are performing, and then you got some secondary scoring tonight too, which was great. So, with that being said, guys, I'll hang up and listen. Remember, this is brought to you by Outlet Liquor, the place to buy a case over on Georgia Boulevard. Make sure you get over to Outlet Liquor for your Sabres game night and Bills game day needs. And always remember, let's go Sabres.